Hi, Dan. Thanks for joining today.
Hey, Paul, pleasure to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. I'm excited about today. I know that you work with companies, you're a keynote speaker. You really touch in depth topics, resilience, mindset, reframing, and how to create opportunities in adversity. All stuff I love to talk about. And for yourself, though, too, you have a pretty powerful backstory. Generally, I like to dive into the meat of things as far as those in depths I just mentioned, but I'd really like to start with your background, if that's all right, and hear your story. It sounds like a incredible medical journey, but really more a journey of the soul and beyond that. So if you don't mind sharing.
Thanks, Paul. So my story takes place in jolly old London, England in 2014. Living my best life, working in tech in London, getting paid pennies on the pound. They had a free keg at the office on Friday, so we had a pretty loose Friday night. Drinking Jenga, bar crawls. It was an awesome time. Healthy, active guy playing sports, played five-a-side footy and played ball hockey in London. Everything's going swell for me, right? And then I started having these headaches. And they got worse over a few weeks, taking painkillers like candy for them. My head was pounding. So on a tube one day, the tube's how you zigzag around London, lumbering towards Nine Hill Gate tube station on the district line. Headaches were so bad, the pressure so much, my vision started to go, I saw spots. It slowly started to fade to black. Arrived at Nine Hill Gate tube station, stepped on the platform, mind the gap, and the curtain fell, the lights went out. I couldn't see, I was blind. So Paul, I want to ask you, able-sighted guy, able-sighted person your whole life, how would you react to suddenly becoming blind on a tube station in London? What would your first thoughts be?
First, I can't even imagine it. I'd probably be confusion and disbelief or something external of myself. Did the lights go out? I can't even guess.
It was pretty provocative and pretty jarring. I stepped on the platform and I froze. I didn't know what to do. Because like in a busy tube station in London, if you're blind, like you're like a big target. And I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do with this? This is not good at all. After the longest 3 minutes of my life, my vision came back. And I carried on my day. But the next day I went storming back into A&E. A&E is accident emergency in the UK, like ER in the States. And I told them what had happened. Blind on a tube station in London. What's going on here? This is not normal. Let's figure this out. They ran some more tests. And again, they thought it was vertigo. They sent me home. On the way out, they told me I could always get my eyes checked by an optometrist. An optometrist thought that's odd. But okay. Next day, the headaches were back with a vengeance. Not as bad as the first day, but they were pretty profound. And I found myself in Ms. Patel's chair, the optometrist. He was midway through a routine exam when he stops it, excuses himself in the room, and comes back a few minutes later with a sealed envelope, which he handed me. He told me to go directly to Moorfields Hospital, which I did. Paul, tell a lie. I stopped at home first to grab a Jack Reacher book by Lee Child, a phone charger to bite to eat. Then I arrived at Moorfields Hospital, handed them that envelope. They ran the same test there again, then escalated me up to Charing Cross Hospital. We're getting somewhere. I'm thinking, this is positive. This is good. We're finding out what's going on here. Now, it turns out I had a dangerous buildup of pressure in my brain caused from a non-cancerous cyst in my pineal gland. This prevented the fluid from my brain to drain as it normally would, causing the pressure to mount. Turns out I required emergency brain surgery tomorrow. Turns out my world's about to change altogether. After a frantic back and forth with folks in Canada, the last text message my mom received reads, "I'll see you soon, Mom. Think I'll have a new haircut next time I see you. Mom's in the air flying to London on June 21st, 2014. I'm on the operating table. Something goes horribly wrong. And I have a massive bleed in the brain. A brain hemorrhage. This cyst burst when they operated. Mom lands in and finds I'm in critical condition. I was in a coma for 4 weeks, but was in and out of consciousness for months after this. Things were pretty dicey, touch and go. When I was in a coma, they had to keep my core temperature down below 4 degrees. Otherwise, I'd be brain damage. The brain hemorrhage had damaged parts of the brain that regulate heart rate, blood pressure, the essential body systems. I was all out of whack. Alarms constantly went off as blood pressure spiked to heart rate too high. They used ice blankets above and below me to keep my core temperature down. So I woke up 4 weeks later, had my mom, dad, and brother on the bed. I'm trying to talk, but I can't talk. My vocal cords are fried. Being told, hey, Dan, you had a brain hemorrhage. You're in a hospital in London. This is the situation. And I'm trying to talk, but I can't talk. So give me a pen and paper. I point at my brother, I go, you. I write on the pen and paper, I go, get me the hell out of here. And I give it to him and I go, you, make this happen. Get me out of here right now. I just was beside myself to know what happened. And of course, Cam didn't bust me out, thankfully. So I was in the hospital for months after this, but it went 0 to 60 for me in a matter of 8 hours. Healthy, active guy one day to all of a sudden waking up 4 weeks later out of a coma, being told this is what happened to you. And life got pretty real pretty quick for me right there.
Wow, man, that's incredible. There's a lot of little questions I have too. In the coma state, was it really just you're down and then you're up? Was there any cognition through that coma phase, or was it just you went into surgery and you just all of a sudden you felt like you woke up again and you have that recognition now, the memory?
Yeah, so I was put in a medically induced coma. for the brain hemorrhage, and I didn't want to wake up from it. So they were a bit like, oh, this is not good, because they took me out of the medication to get out of the coma, but I didn't wake up for 4 weeks later. So they're like, whoops. I had one dream in the coma that I remember clearly, and that's kind of an odd one. I don't really know what this means, but I'll share it on your podcast, Paul.
Please.
I was on a submarine, and on the submarine there was a massive aquarium, and I couldn't understand why the hell they'd have a massive aquarium on a submarine when we're already underwater. What the hell does this mean? But the coma was fleeting states of consciousness, being in and out, memories of being bathed, but I was pretty much dead to rights for 4 weeks, really. And then I woke up, and then all of a sudden the world got real quick on me real fast.
Yeah. I guess there's the road to recovery. It's hard to encompass in one question here, because there's levels of, did you have survival stages of that grief? I imagine you've ran the gamut at that point, as far as emotional, mental capacities, ability to reintroduce yourself. I'm sure, did you have PT for that lasted a while too?
PT, what does that mean?
Physical therapy.
I actually had, my leg had atrophied in the coma, so my left leg was not viable.
Okay.
It had shriveled up. I don't know what had happened. I guess in the coma, I torqued the knee or leg, and it wasn't viable, so I couldn't walk. Woke up from the coma, couldn't talk, because they used a tracheotomy to get my breathe, and it fried my vocal cords. They told my parents, doesn't look like he's going to be a talker anymore. And my parents had built this little dossier of me when I was in a coma. Who Dan is. Dan's a sportsman, studied his master's in Sweden, loves the Canucks. From Vancouver, was a ski racer. All these things about me made me a real person in the coma, so the nurse practitioners would, see me as a person, not just a patient.
Right.
And this Kiwi nurse read that file, and she goes, I'll get him talking again. So she took me down to the park. So some kids playing football across the park. And she goes, Dan, those kids across the park, they don't think you're good enough to talk. And I found out pretty quickly that's a trigger for me. And I found my voice pretty fast. And they yelled across the park some profanities was sparing you and listeners, but needless to say, I found my voice. And I found out what motivated me was proving you wrong.
Yeah. So she was coking the bear there. She was pushing you a little bit.
Yeah, I've always been a pretty competitive guy, playing lots of sports growing up, hockey, soccer, volleyball. I love sports, I love competing. I loved that when I cared about the thing. Not always competitive, but when I cared about it, I was really competitive about it. And so being told I'm not good enough to talk is, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah.
And it was very jarbled speak, but I could speak again. I remember the next day, my mom comes in and goes, how are you doing, Dan? And I go, I nod my head good. She goes, no, use your words, Dan. And I go, I should have never started talking.
Yeah.
But it was just a dogfight to get even talking again. But that took a few weeks to get talking again. And then I had to wear a splint over my left leg to start stretching the leg muscle back to be able to use it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, then how long did that take?
That took about 4 months to get me walking again.
Okay.
I wear a splint over my left leg to help stretch out the leg muscle, right? Now, the splint's like a cast over your leg to gently tease out the leg muscle. That's what they told me. Gentle was the word they used.
Sure.
And the first night it was easy, no stress. This will be easy, I thought. What was I wrong? The second night, after 20 minutes, it was painful. After 30, it was dreadful. After 40, it was unbearable. I hit the nurse call button, take the splint off my leg because I can't handle the pain. It's too much to handle, I told them. Before they left, I told them, tomorrow we're doing this for an hour. I'm a walker, I can handle the pain. Big talk, Paul, big talk. So the third night, they wrapped my leg, tied off at the ankle, gave me the clicker, the nurse call button. They go patrol the Wilson ward. Now, the Wilson ward was an L shape, right? So short on the side, long on the side. They left me in that hospital room that smells like only a hospital room can smell. Sanitized, sterilized. It's clean, but you wonder what sort of atrocities have been committed by the guys of that lemony zestness. After 10 minutes, the leg's painful. After 20 minutes, the leg's dreadful. After 30 minutes, the leg's unbearable. I start passing clicker back and forth, trying to distract myself from the pain. The pain is excruciating, Paul. As the pain ratchets up, my throats get more enthusiastic, till eventually, inevitably, I drop the clicker and it lands on the hard linoleum floor 3.5 feet down the ground. Probably not helped by the dull vision I have still, which is why I'm on the eye patch today. I yell out, sugar. Did not yell that out, Paul. I yelled out some other words.
Yeah, I got you.
I looked over the edge of the bed. I could see the clicker there lying on the floor looking back at me on the hard linoleum floor 3.5 feet down the ground. If I get that clicker, I can stop this pain. I can end this monstrosity. Only problem was, if I fall from that height, might break my arm. Coin flip, not the best odds. I changed tack. I'm trying to untie the slip, but it's tied off the ankle, not the hip. I can't reach out far down. I'm not that flexible. Help! Help! I yelled. The word of the wolf was in L shape, right? Short on the side, long on the side. They're at the far end of the word. They can't hear me yell for help. I decided to flip the coin, drop down and grab the clicker. Even if I break my arm, this splint's got to come on my leg. This is priority number 1, 2, and 3. Lower myself off the edge of the bed, and I crashed down an absolute heap. Blankets, wires, cables, it's all a go. It's an absolute yard sale. The arm pulls, and I hammer the clicker, expecting the nurse to come bursting into the room like the bat signals been put up. They kind of strolled in 5 minutes later. What are you doing the phone of? First of all, I say, that's a fantastic British accent you have there. Where do you say you're from again? I didn't say that either, Paul. So let's get splint off my leg, please. I'm telling you about this. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters, right?
Yeah.
The reason why I'm telling this story, Paul, is I learned 3 lessons from this experience. The first being, let's not pass the clicker back and forth. That's a bad idea. The second was, let's tie the splint up with the hip, not the ankle. That way you can untie this shit that's happening going forwards. And the third lesson, and probably most profound lesson I learned from this that I carried forward, was let's always be solutions-oriented when things go sideways. When things go sideways in life, how do you fix your problem? Because things are going to go sideways. At the moment of contact, how do you solve your problem? With the help of the splint, I will start walking the hallways of the Wilson. Use the Zimmer frame first, which is a 4-post walker you alert forward on. Then I moved up to the Ferrari. I called the Ferrari because in Ferrari racer, it was a walker. So we're not going that fast, but for me, this is fucking grease lightning, okay, Paul? I'm ripping, I'm having fun. Then we moved up to naked walks. Now, what's a naked walk, you may ask?
Yeah.
I'm walking without sport aids, I'm walking naked. But the term stuck because I told people I went for a naked walk and they go, Dan, I don't think you can do that. I went for a naked walk today. But I'm building myself back up. Then came time to walk on the streets of Tooting Broadway. So Paul, I want to ask you, have you been to London, England?
I have. It's been a while, but...
Okay, so the energy, the pulse, the vibe of the city, you can understand the busyness of the city. More bespoke here, have you been to Tooting Broadway?
I can't remember, but...
Let me set the scene for you and your listeners, okay? Broadway's an area in South London, an area they call up and coming. Think loud sirens, drugs, gangs. It's dirty, it's hectic, and boys are busy. I'm walking with a cane, I'm walking with an eye patch. After 4 months in a wheelchair, I'm literally Bambi on ice. I turn the corner to walk on the high street of Tooting Broadway for the first time. Immediately get slammed into by someone. I stagger back a few feet. Someone scurries past me on the right-hand side. I thought I was done with the rats. Someone had been stabbed on the sidewalk over here. I'm thinking, this is a pretty wild place to learn how to walk. After a few days of this, I was thinking, this is the worst place to learn how to walk in the world. Can't they see I'm trying to walk in here? And then one day my perspective shifted. Maybe this isn't the worst place to learn how to walk in the world. Maybe this is the best. If I can walk here, I can walk anywhere. My Tooting Broadway didn't change, right, Paul? We went from the worst to the best in my mind, and my mood reflected that. What are you looking at in your life you're convinced is the worst? Convinced is the absolute worst. Hey, maybe it is. Maybe you can find a way to turn down the suck a little bit. Shift that perspective a little bit. Iron Mike Tyson famously said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's a hard fact. It'll be a job loss, a breakup, a diagnosis for you, a loved one. You will take that punch in the mouth. How you respond. I'm offering a compass, not a map, but a compass that always points towards true north. Living the mindset, perspective, and hacks about you and your team be better than yesterday, tomorrow. My name's Dan MacQueen, and the reason why I told you and your listeners that it's learning to walk in Tooting Broadway is when you change the way you look at the world, it changes, and you don't need a brain hammer to understand that. So I share that story, Paul, to showcase how my mindset of reframing things allowed me to navigate the change that I faced in my life, the worst and the best. I began looking forward to those walks. Bump into me, crash past me, good, bring it on. If I can walk here, I can walk anywhere. And when that shift in my mindset happened, it was like the seas parted. I wasn't reluctantly going for walks. I was like, yeah, let's get the strife, the struggle, the strain. Like, I want to get better here. If you drafted a place to learn to be the walker again, you want a tough environment. A place that's going to stress you, test you, and bump you. Like, I looked forward to these walks. There's a mindset shift I did. And what I mean, that mindset shift is just like the seas parted for me there, Paul. So that's the experience of learning to walk in Tooting Broadway.
That's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And you gave a few different lessons there. One is just, I don't want to be overly generalistic, but if you put yourself in those harder situations and you can survive those and you can get through those, that's where the strength and those big jumps can come from. That's beautiful. And then I did want to ask you about the naked walk, because when you said that, in essence, is it just walking in strength and walking in power, walking without the idea of the proverbial, the representative of the crutch? Is that kind of the essence of that, or am I missing?
Because I'm with the Ferrari before this, and I was like a walker, so I could walk with a walker. Yeah. And then I used to walk with a cane as well, but I was walking without anything. I was walking naked, so it was just like this. I'm doing a naked walk. This is amazing. Yeah. We were walking back into the ICU ward, maybe 6 months after the brain injury, with a cane and an eye patch, and my doctor there, Doris, burst into tears because she didn't think I'd be walking. She didn't think I'd be walking into that place ever. And I'm walking in there again. I was almost dead to rights in the coma. And I just incrementally built this up and took steps to improve my life. But like, it wasn't easy, but it was simple, Paul.
Sure.
I made the choice to do this and it shows how I viewed this struggle, this strain. Like, it's not fair, but it's not personal, right?
Yeah.
This whole brain injury is not, I never got woes me about the whole thing, but I was definitely not happy with what happened, but I was never woes me about it.
Okay. I was going to ask you that.
Yes. Yeah, it's not fair, but it's not personal, right? Like, shit happens, man. And if you get hung up on why me, woes me, like, it had to happen to someone. This blip was in my DNA, Paul. I'm only Dan MacQueen because this blip was in my DNA. But if it wasn't, had this experience, it wouldn't be myself. They said the odds of you being a human being are 400 trillion to 1. 400 trillion to 1 with a T, not a B. Aggregate number, right? I'm lucky enough to get a hand of cards. Let's say we're playing cards. This card is my hand. I couldn't avoid this no matter what. I got to muck the whole hand now because this? No, I'm going to play the hand. And damn it, I'm playing the hand. So let's go.
Yeah. May I quote you too? I saw you, I did listen to something you were doing a keynote, and I think your quote was, "It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility." Did I quote you correctly on that?
That's correct. Look, stuff's going to happen in life that's not your fault, but guess what? You got to deal with it. So I remember friends visiting me in the hospital in London. They said, Dan, you never down and woes me about this in the hospital because I didn't want to show that sourpuss attitude. I didn't want to let it take hold of my vibe at all. I wanted to relish the opportunity to get better and relish the opportunity to live. Honestly, they didn't think I'd make it out of the coma. They didn't think I'd be walking again. I've overcome the odds in every obstacle you face here. And only by reframing this and putting to work, I was able to get myself back up. That wheelchair took 45 minutes to get into the first time. Next week, I tried to do 40. Week after 35. I'm incrementally ratcheting this up to get back to basis, to get back to life. There's nothing more humbling than being wheeled into the shower in a wheelchair, stark naked, cool down and go shower for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And I can't do this on my own.
Yeah, it's a monumental task.
And I'll dive into one story too that's a bit about challenge. And this is a big part of my vibe as well, challenging the perceptions and preconceived notions. Out of the hospital, maybe 6 months later, I'd say, I was back at home. And he used to have to shower with a bath mat because it wasn't stable enough for my feet. And the nurse told my parents he's got to use a bath mat to shower, keeps him straight on his feet. He can't slip and slide. And I hang this bath mat up in my shower every day to dry. And every time I saw it, I'd be like, you're not good enough to shower down. This bath mat is a symbol that you're not good enough to shower on your own. You need a bath mat to hold you up and to stabilize you. And I said, you know what? One day I'm like, screw this. I don't need this freaking bath mat anymore. Folks, I'm not using the bath mat anymore. Oh, Dan, you have to use the bath mat. They told you to use the bath mat. I'm like, no, I'm not using the bath mat. Showered the next day with the bath mat, and guess what? I was just fine. So I retired the bath mat. I used to walk with a cane around London. Went to a trip back to Vancouver for Christmas one year, forgot the cane. Guess what? I was fine without the cane, so I retired the cane. Used to wear an eye patch. I'm wearing the eye patch again now because I've had eye surgery recently, which we'll talk about later. But I went on a safari in South Africa. I used to wear a contact lens. It was a kind of the same as a contact lens, or a eye patch, but it just blocks the cornea in your eyes. You can't see. Works the same as an eye patch, but a little less, more subtle. Let Dustin root me on get my eye, so I decided I'm not going to bring it to South Africa. And I was fine in South Africa, so guess what? I retired the contact lens. Only by risking failure can you improve and stretch yourself. Now, do this within reason. Don't take wild moonshot stuff here, but take a stab. And failure is the best teacher because failure is first attempt in learning. If you fail, pivot and adapt and learn. But only by risking failure can you improve and stretch yourself and find out where those new parameters are. I love finding out the rules of a game or a system so I can break them, so I can manipulate them to fit my narrative, to fit my value prop. And only by risking failure can you do that. And that involves flying on your face sometimes. And I've done that many times, literally falling off the tube, I tripped and fall. I'm not stable on my feet. I've got double vision, which kind of throws things off. But only risking failure and falling can you improve. And I'm lucky enough to be young enough that I can handle these falls and these knocks now. But that's how you improve in life, is by challenging notions and what's possible, what's not possible. Understanding what you can and can't do. But only by knowing what you can and can't do can you break those rules and those.
Yeah. I think there's so many people that would have crumbled or gotten stuck in the loss and the grief in that situation. It's easy to allow those tsunamis to really drown you or all encompass you. So that is a testament, and to lead by example is that story. And that's the takeaway I'm really pulling from that too, is it's those little lessons, those little stretches, those little challenges. And when we do challenge ourselves, as from the audience perspective, the growth and those incremental challenges, it can happen in small ways. Like you had said, it doesn't have to be a massive brain aneurysm, but it can happen in small ways. And that's when the progress starts to begin throughout that. So you had the road to recovery. Was it just smooth sailing from there? I know you mentioned the eye patch with that, but did you ever have any big relapses with the brain or the aneurysm, or was that kind of cured in that sense?
Yeah, so with the brain injury, you're never out of the woods, right? You got to wake up every day with intention, gear myself up, meditation, cold shower. I don't myself up for the day. So I made myself back to work about a year after the brain injury, right? 2.5 days a week, nothing heroic here. Ramped up to 3, slowly getting my life back on track, putting this injury behind me, taking steps to improve my lot and to get my life back going here. Shout out to Hootsuite. They really put a lot of work into getting me back to work and really appreciate what they did for me and my family.
That's great.
But I'm in the tube before I went to work in the morning at Sawgrove Road. She'd go off on her walk and I go into the office. Little routine to make sure I got off okay. One day I didn't show up. She called my cell, no response, walked back to my flat, knocks on the door, no answer, opens the door. I'm unconscious on the floor. She calls 999, 911 in the States. And I'm rushed to the hospital. And I went emergency brain surgery. What had happened was I have a shunt in my brain from the first brain injury. It had blocked the hydrocephalus, or water on the brain. So I woke up the next day, hearing the heart, beeping noise, the heart monitor going off behind me, beep, beep. Well, what happened? What happened? Dan, you had a second setback. And I go, what do you mean? All my progress was washed away. We got the blockage, but yeah, you're back in the hospital. And I can't tell you how low that was because I've been working for a year to get back to the office to get my life back on track. And then in an instance, it's gone. And all my progress was washed away in a second. And it took me a while to get to terms with this and to agree with this with myself and understand what had happened and what had come, because it's not fair, but again, it's not personal. It's not your, I'm not trying to say it's not personal, but it's your responsibility to fix it. It's like I realized I've got to adapt my mindset and get back to this. So like the progress was washed away, sure, but I knew I could do it in my mind. The pathways were formed in my mind that I knew I could break through this and recover. And I was walking again after the injury, so it wasn't as far back as the first one, right? The mental grind to get myself back in shape, to get back to work and back to improving was excruciatingly difficult and took all the mental fortitude to navigate this. But that was a horrific experience. And I described my recovery like a W, Paul. So the first setback's down here. I climb halfway back up to where it was before life. The second setback's not where the first one was, much lower. The depths of the human experience, I call this. Where your hopes and dreams are snickered at. You thought you had a chance there, bud. You ain't going nowhere. Sure. You're back down in the ground. We got you here, bud. I talk about my brain injury now in like joking, mocking terms because, not because it was easy to navigate, because I don't pay this any respect or he didn't, you ain't shit, bud. Like you try to get me with this? No, I overcame you. And the darkest time I experienced in my life was that time, rock bottom for a long time. But then I soon realized that in a rock bottom, no, it can be bedrock, right? You can build yourself back up from this. Like you've got a good foundation now, but you can do the rehab in your mind and get back to where you're at. Now you just got to put in the work, get up early, meditate, go for the gym, go for a workout, start doing the stuff you know works and just do that again, rinse and repeat. So it's about the mental fortitude you need to navigate that, if it makes sense.
How about the physical aspect on that second setback? Because the first one, you had your leg, which was a big process to get back walking, and the speech. Did you, even though that mentally, emotionally, it was a much deeper dark night of the soul, physically, was there any setbacks with any other parts, like like you said, like the leg and the speech? Or was that a little bit quicker on the recovery for that second time?
No, the speech was fine because I didn't have the tracheotomy down my throat, thankfully. And the physical stuff, I could walk still, so it wasn't as bad. It was more of a mental game. When that all that work was washed away in an instant, and I'm like, now it's like, I've got to look out for fatigue, and could that be a second relapse of the VP shunt and blocking again? And the kicker was, they told me this is very rare. Happens in less than 10% of cases, right? Lucky me, this is just awesome. When it rains, it pours, right? So I was just devastated by this, and it took so much help, my friends and family, to get myself back up from this experience. Slowly but surely, I got to work, chop wood, carry water, and just incrementally ratchet myself back up to a point where I can add value and get back to the office and get my life back. But it took a lot of mental gamesmanship to get through.
I can't even imagine. So that first one was 2014, right? Then the 2015. So it's been about a decade at this point. So I guess jumping forward a little bit, we can always come back, but I was going to say is, when did you get to the point where you wanted to keynote speak and really deliver this message and these lessons in a stronger, more outward expression way?
Yeah, so I used to give talks to the outpatients at Wilson Rehab Center in London, my old rehab center, to showcase how you navigate the world outside of the walls of the hospital. I created this talk. It came to me in a flash in New York. I wrote down all these things, like about these perspectives and value hacks and propositions and ways you can navigate life. And I created this, and I gave it to my Wilson Rehab Center about once a quarter. Then I gave it to my company at Hootsuite. I did a keynote for them, did like a workshop thing where I read through my story and asked them, what would you like to hear more about this? And what can I add there? And refine this. And then gave the keynote in London in person. Then I was invited to do a mental health day in Vancouver. I moved back with Vancouver with Hootsuite about 2022. Gave that talk, and the feedback I got from that talk was so positive and so transformational. And so I didn't think about it that way. That's so great, Dan. And so raw and gritty that you described it this way. And there's something here, I thought. About 6 months later, I got let go from my job in a corporate restructuring. 400 people lost their job on that day, and I was on the wrong side of the spreadsheet. Simple terms is business, right? I decided I'm a keynote speaker tomorrow, which means I need a computer today. We went, picked up a computer, which I'm calling you on today, Paul, and I dove in full board to speaking. I've got a talk that can add value, and I'm just going to chase this down full board, because I realized, like, you get to do this, right? Life is something you get to do, and you can live your life doing something you don't want to do, or I can do something I want to do that lights me up. And when I talk, when I speak, when I share my perspective, I really want to give you these lessons learned, because I had so much help, Paul. Maybe you don't have that help. Friends, family came over to visit me from London, like Vancouver from London, helped me navigate this and build myself back up. I remember my friend Claire Ferguson came to visit me when I was at Wilson Rehab Center, and she goes, Dan, you're working so hard here and you're making these big strides and these big gains. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but like, I kind of knew in my head I could try harder. And she went up to Scotland after visiting me. I was in a wheelchair at the stage. She came back down to London to visit me before she went back to Vancouver, and I was walking in the Zimmer frame. I wanted to prove to her that I'm worthy of the praise you're giving me, that I'm working hard here. So maybe bullshit you to, yeah, I'm trying harder, but like I knew in my head, like you could try harder. Motivation comes from 3 areas as far as I can tell. Proving you're wrong, proving you're right, and service. The more you can harness all 3 of those, the more you can accelerate your motivation and your drive. In life now, I'm trying to capture all of those in one thing to harness that wave. And it amplifies the wave. So you got 1, you got 2, you got 3. In life, I'm just riding that wave down now, trying to harness all 3 of those motivation factors and categories, try and do what I can do and add value in this world.
It's incredible. How long have you been speaking then? What was the time frame on that? Sorry, I'm just very interested in that as well. So
I've been speaking about 7 years now, but professionally keynoting about 2 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's incredible. Yeah, that's great. And you did say, I wanted to touch on something you said too, which I love, is I get to do this instead of I have to do this or it's a requirement. Because there's so many things in life that we get stuck in these things of feeling the requirement running through the cogs and the gears and the pulleys. And when you look at it that way, it's a daunting task and it's a heavy weight in there. But to say that you get to do this, it's an honor. There's a gratitude there. And there's a fun and playful aspect that can be too.
Yeah, play is a big part of my vibe too, right, Paul? I've made things like gamified things, and I've made things of like get in the wheelchair like 5 minutes faster than last week and walk for another block and ramp this stuff back up. Like I remember being in the hospital, Wilson Rehab Center, a chance for a home visit came up. Yeah. Then the hospital, Wilson Rehab Center for maybe about 2 months, hadn't been home about 6 months. And I just started walking again, right? And the only thing that stood between me and a way of having a home visit were the stairs to get back to my flat in Hammersmith. Okay. My mom goes, oh, there must be 100 stairs. There was actually 44 stairs. 44 stairs stood between me and a way of having a home visit. 44 stairs didn't sound like much, but keep in mind I was fresh out of a wheelchair. That seemed like a rather tall order. You had trained the stairs in the hospital, building up to 44. 44 was all I needed, a weekend away, a weekend out of the Dree Hospital. Come hell or high water, I was picking up with 44 steps back home. Eventually, after a few weeks, I built my way to 44 steps, allowed back home. Home sweet home, man. I made the best BLT sandwich of my life at the stairs, but it was 44, it wasn't 100. So pick your targets and aim towards that. Goal setting is so big for this, but make sure you're aiming at the right target. It was a game. It was like all this stuff, like all these hacks that I share as well. Paul, I'll share one with you now if you don't mind.
Please.
So out of the hospital, right, like I use this thing called icebreakers when I'm walking in London, because London's a busy city. What an icebreaker is someone you walk behind, right up behind them, so they're breaking the ice for you. They're dealing with the oncoming traffic, the people walking past you. You're like a wind tunnel or like you're coaxing off their work. You're following the icebreaker they've done. They paved the way. Their way, exactly. So
their jet stream and like the geese that...
You're like making it less, you're turning down the suck. You're just having fun with it. If I can find a good icebreaker, I can walk through this busy area faster behind their wake and their work. I've got other ones like on this podcast, this gaming podcast a little while ago. I'm not a gamer. And the host goes, Dan, what's a video game that you remember playing a lot growing up? I'm like, Mario Kart 64 was my game. I was pretty good at that. Well, just think about that when you're talking on the podcast. So, okay, so life's Mario Kart 64. You go around and say that first race, the mushroom circuit over, and you hit that obstacle on the second turn on the left-hand side. Hit it the second lap on the same obstacle. And you're like, hit it the third lap. You're like, dude, you know the obstacle's there. Drive around it. Start finding patterns and breaking the stuff down to find out how you can gamify this and make this work for you. Keeping the obstacles, dude, you know it's there. Drive around this shit. But it's reframing your mindset to allow you to adapt this and find light of it. Like my podcast that I have, it's on pause right now, Paul, called Play Loose, Look Tight, documenting the process of life after. What does it mean, Dan? It's a life mantra in 4 words. Play loose, joie de vivre, have fun. Play is the first word by intention. When life's about play, it's a bit more lighthearted, more fun, a bit more joie de vivre vibe, right? Conversely, you want to look tight. Intention with your time and your demeanor, with your work, with your dress, with being clean and hygienic. Like you want to be looking tight as well. So play loose, look tight is a life mantra I've kind of adapted in 4 words.
I really like that. Yeah. The system recognition is a real powerful thing. You really honed in on that as well. And incrementally, it's ways of getting incrementally better and finding, to use your word, those hacks is in behavioral science too, like things that drive people is the self, the other, and then the systems to create ease of process, fast track your desires or whatever you feel that can create in the systemization. But I love the word play. I really like the word adventure. exploration, because in the exploration with the innocence of a child, you're iterating, you're feeling your way through some of these things. And that's when I really believe you have the breakthroughs. You can see those. If you're rigid and you're too fixed on, I have to make this hard turn, you're not going to let yourself flow a little bit, see those bumpers, see where you can stretch it, and truly find some of those accelerators or those pattern recognition so that you can build on the next one and the next one. So I do appreciate that type of thought process quite deeply.
Yeah, I want to touch on that a bit more if you don't mind, Paul, but I've got this new keynote that I'm building out now called AAA Framework. How you can acknowledge is how you adapt to adversity and resilience, how to become more resilient. So I'll spell out the 3 A's for you. So the first one's acknowledge. That's with the head. You got to think with your head. This could be me waking up in the hospital bed being told, hey, Dan, you had a brain hemorrhage. Second one's adapt. That's the heart. You got to feel it. You got to, okay, I had a brain hemorrhage. You got to own those feelings and own that experience. The third one's adapt. And that's with the hacks. That's with the mindset shift. That's with seeing the world through a different lens. But those AAA framework, if you can take that on board, acknowledge, accept, and adapt, you can navigate change. You can navigate adversity in any facet you face. But I think you have to walk through each one of those spaces to find that resilience. Acknowledge, accept, and adapt.
And in that framework too, is that something that people can grow stronger at, or if you're consistent with it? I don't want to call it a muscle, but that repetition of that, is that a skill that can just improve or quicken with time?
Yeah, for sure. Resilience is a muscle. You can flex that muscle and you can build it, right? I'm not resilient like you, or I'm not resilient in that capacity. I think I've always been a bit prove you wrong kind of vibe. I've had lots of instances in my life where I'm like, I want to prove you wrong. I want to get there. So I've had a bit of that dog in me. But you can flex the muscle of building resilience. And that's just proving to yourself you do what you say you're going to do. Keeping promises to yourself. So for instance, I shower every morning warm and then shower cold for 2 minutes. Nothing heroic here. I'm in Vancouver, Canada. It's not nearly as cold as Chicago, but it's still abrasive at AF, man. Like it's still, every day when I hit that cold water is jarring. It's freezing in my head. It's ice cold. Once I do that, I know that I can do hard things. I've kept that promise to myself. I swim 3 times a week. When I get in the pool, I set an intention for laps. I've got a lap counter, which does what it says in the tent, counts your laps.
Yeah.
And I hold those laps. Save one exception, Paul. Save one exception. If there's a backstroker in my lane, I can punt the laps entirely and get out of there and go in the sauna. That's my one out. Other than that, I owe those lengths no matter what. So 50, 60, 70, 80. I owe those lengths.
Yeah.
And I proved myself I do what I say I'm going to do. Like I've done that time in, time out for days, weeks, months, and years. And I know I can do that. I know I can be resilient if I need to. But only by going through the resilient stuff can you prove to yourself that you do that stuff, right? Where's your stack of evidence that says you do what you say you're going to do? I used to live in the ladder. Last example I'll share with you. In Haringey, Turnpike Lake Tube Station in London. It's this housing development on this ladder structure. So I'd walk for 1 block for the morning before work. Next week I do 2 blocks. Listen to my audiobook, crush some knowledge, crush some podcasts. Next week I do 3 blocks, then 4 blocks, then 5 blocks. And I'd wrap this up. I'd ratchet this up after weeks, months, and years of this. So I know that I do what I say I'm going to do. If you do what you say you're going to do, I know I can do it because I've done it in the past. Where's your evidence? This is what you do otherwise. So if you're having a tough time, if you're struggling through adversity and mind, like stuff, just start keeping promises to yourself. I know it's the last example. And one last example here, Paul. Meditation. I meditate every day now for 20 minutes, but I started with 2 minutes in the morning for 1 week. Then the next week I did 4. Then I did 6. Who can't do 2 minutes, right?
Absolutely.
Then I had 2 minutes on the next week. So 4, then 6, then 8, then 10, then 12, then 14, then 16, then 18. You ratchet this up after days, weeks, months, and years. I know I can do this because I've got this stack of evidence that says I do what I say I'm going to do. So build that stack of evidence through acknowledge, accept, and adapt. And hey, man, watch the world unfold to conspire against you or conspire with you.
I love it. Yeah, I love that. You become your own trailblazer. You expand and you continue to be that. You find those waypoints and you continue to just blaze through those trails. And now you have the evidence. I love that too, where the recognition, the gratitude, that all appreciation of yourself and feeds into the self-worth, into the heart space.
Do hard stuff. And so I do the hard stuff in the shower in the morning, like the cold shower, because I know I can do hard stuff that day. I've done something hard in the morning. I've overcome that. Stack those wins up in the column and start keeping track of that. I track my swims on my phone. I don't know why I started this, but I've got this for the past 4 years, lengths and the time it took to do those lengths, 40 and 35, 60 and 55. And it goes for pages and pages of notes. I've just tracked this for some reason. And so I know that I can do that stuff. When I first went in the pool, Paul, it was took 30 minutes to change, did 5 lengths, and then it took 30 minutes to get changed again. I started out very small, very slow, but I've ratcheted this up after weeks, months, and years doing this. And now I know that I can do this stuff. 60 lengths in the pool early days in the brain injury was like, no way I'm doing that. But now I do that. That's a standard swim for me.
Isn't that incredible?
Start with 5, right? Like, and then ratchet up to 10 and then 15. Just ratchet this stuff up, man. It's about putting the work in. If you're going through a tough time and you don't show me what you've been doing to improve your life, I'm like, look, you got to put the work in to make this happen. Neuroplasticity is real, but you got to put the work in to make this happen.
Yeah. Stack the wins. I love that. Stack those wins. So Dan, thank you so much for sharing your story. I love the AAA method. So I'm looking forward to hearing more as that kind of develops and you continue to talk about that. That's incredibly strong. Thank you again. Where can people find you or reach out or get you to speak at a keynote?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So you can find me at MacQueenDan.com. That's MacQueen Dan.com. And MacQueen Dan across the socials, which we'll link to in the show notes as well.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks again for joining today.
Appreciate you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.